What these animals were doing was not normal. That was clear to everyone who participated in the excursion. By the way, there was also a vet among them, and he was the only one who seemed to realize what was really going on. He was terrified, but he knew he had to get everyone to safety immediately. It was too dangerous to stay here. He told everyone, "This isn't right. We need to run away." But no one seemed to care. He realized that their lives could be in his hands. "Do you all hear me? I'm serious. We have to get out of here right now." Mark tried again, but no one moved. Some of the others looked in his direction for a second, but then turned to the sheep, astonished by the strange phenomenon that was happening right in front of them. They weren't listening to him. Mark looked at the sheep again, thinking that maybe he had been wrong, but there was no doubt. They were very restless and walked in circles. I had never seen this kind of behavior before, but I had heard and read about it enough to be able to recognize it. I was 100% sure of what was happening here, and it was bad news. Mark didn't know what to do to make everyone understand that they were really in danger. Finally, he grabbed the guy next to him by the shoulders and explained what was going to happen if they didn't leave right now. "I'm not kidding. Trust me. We have to go." "But what about the rest of the trip? We still have to climb the mountain," the boy replied. Mark groaned, realizing that this was going to be harder than he expected. "What is it that you don't understand about what I just said? If you stay here, you risk your life. Forget about walking." This warning finally seemed to work. Others heard what he had said to the man, and at last he had his attention. Mark breathed a sigh of relief when he realized that everyone was listening to him now. He climbed a large rock and shouted, "Please listen!" Finally, everyone stopped talking, and the group gathered around him, waiting for him to continue. "Well, finally. As I've been trying to tell you, this here," he said, pointing to the sheep walking in a circle through the field, "it's a big problem." He went on repeating the same explanation he had given to the man a minute ago, and the others gasped at what he was saying. Panic was beginning to spread. Absolute chaos broke out and everyone began to talk at once, evidently very worried. "Please stay calm. We have to leave right now, but if panic sets in, it will only make things worse. Keep calm and follow me. I promise I will bring you to safety." Mark continued, losing patience and eager to get out of there as soon as possible. He jumped off the rock and began to walk in the direction they had just come from, hurrying over as he noticed that the sheep were becoming more and more restless. However, his speech wasn't working as well as he had hoped. Most of the group followed, but not everyone seemed convinced. Some of the group stayed behind, rolling their eyes at the dramatic situation. "Aren't you coming with us?" someone asked them, but they just shook their heads. "No, I don't believe it. It can't be that dangerous. It's just sheep. Also, I have paid for this excursion, and I am going to finish it. I'm going to climb that mountain with or without the rest of you." Someone else chimed in, "Yes, tell him. I join you. I've heard that the views from above are really amazing. I don't want to miss them." Mark sighed and said, "Do what you want. You are free to go, of course. I'm not forcing you to follow me. I've just told you what I know. You are risking your life climbing that mountain right now." "And why is that? By sheep that walk in circles? Of course. You believe what you want and run, but I'm not going to give up." Mark wished them luck and continued walking, not even bothering whether anyone was going to follow him or not. Now I wanted only one thing, and that was to get to safety. After a few minutes, he realized that most of the group had decided to follow him. A woman came up to him and said, "Lord, thank you for helping us. We would never have left if it weren't for you. But What will become of them? He pointed to the mountain, obviously referring to those who had decided to finish the hike. I have no idea, but I wouldn't want to be in his place when it happens. They may never make it home safely. It is a huge risk that they run. The woman nodded, and they continued the walk in silence. Some whispered to each other, wondering if Mark was really telling them the truth, and curious to see what was going to happen next. As they walked, Mark pointed to the sky and asked, "Do you hear this?" The forest was filled with loud cries from the various animals that lived there, showing that they were agitated or distressed. "Everybody feels it coming," Mark explained. He was sure that he had made the right decision and felt sorry for those who had climbed the mountain despite their warnings. Suddenly, he felt something wet on his face. When he looked at the sky, he realized that it had begun to rain. "Well, that's great," he whispered to himself. If they wanted to get out of this forest in time, they had to hurry. Their chances of success were increasingly slim. The rain intensified, falling from the sky with a fury that seemed almost vengeful. Every drop reduced visibility and turned the road into a labyrinth of mud. The ground, once stable, was now slippery and treacherous. Each step had to be calculated. The risk of slipping was too real. Mark narrowed his eyes, trying to make out the road ahead. The rain blurred everything, turning the world into a blurred landscape. But his years of experience guiding through this terrain gave him an advantage. He carefully pointed out the safest areas and hidden obstacles. The group trusted now more than ever in his expertise. The downpour made it difficult to hear each other, so the group began to hold hands, forming a human chain. It was not only a physical support, but also an emotional one. Each squeeze was a silent guarantee. We are in this together. Their unit was the anchor they desperately needed in the midst of the storm. As they went, Mark recounted his previous expeditions, the peculiarities of the landscape, and the many times the weather had played tricks on him. His voice, firm and reassuring, distracted from the incessant patter of the rain. With each story, he subtly taught lessons on how to navigate this difficult terrain, preparing them for what lay ahead. Just when the weight of the situation seemed unbearable, a soft glow permeated the dark clouds. A thin ray of sunlight broke through, casting a dull, golden hue on the damp foliage. The group stopped, their faces turned up, absorbing the brief moment of warmth. The storm was not over, but this brief respite rekindled hope. The path became steeper, full of moss-covered rocks. One of the members, Clara, lost her footing on a particularly slimy stone. He fell and let out a high-pitched scream as pain pierced his ankle. The group ran to his side, worry evident on their rain-soaked faces. Two of the group members, Tara and Leo, quickly assessed Clara's situation. They had some basic medical knowledge and knew that they had to immobilize the wound. With a sturdy branch and its belts, they made an improvised splint. The determination and unity of the group became evident when everyone offered the resources they had to ensure Clara's comfort. Mark knelt beside Clara, feeling guilty. He had always prided himself on ensuring the safety of his group. Now, he felt the full weight of his role. Looking Clara in the eye, he whispered words of comfort. She nodded, trusting him despite the pain. Mark realized that leading wasn't just about knowing the way, but about being there for those who faltered. Given Clara's limited mobility, it was impossible to continue without adequate rest. The group huddles and discusses their options. Given the unpredictability of the weather and Clara's injury, the consensus was clear. They needed shelter. They decided to find a safe place to camp overnight, away from the elements and possible dangers. As they continued their cautious walk, Mark's memory flooded. He remembered an old cabin he had found during one of his solo expeditions. It wasn't luxurious, but it would provide them with the shelter they needed. With renewed vigor, he shared the news, offering a glimmer of hope. The cabin was their next destination, and everyone felt a surge of optimism. The sound of raindrops on the leaves slowly gave way to the distant echo of a wooden structure. The cabin was close. Opening the creaky door, the group was greeted by the cozy embrace of the cabin's interior. The wooden structure had stood the test of time and offered shelter from the storm outside. Its familiar scent of old wood and a slight hint of moss filled his nostrils. Here, they felt a temporary respite from the wrath of nature. Within minutes, a crackling fire ignited in the hearth. The radiated heat attracted everyone. Wet clothes were hung nearby, and their humidity gave way to the heat of the fire. The orange glow cast dancing shadows on the walls, and the atmosphere became one of relief and camaraderie. In one of the shady corners of the cabin, Mark stumbled upon an old radio. Covered in layers of dust, its knobs and dials spoke of a time long gone. Intrigued, he fiddled with her, trying to determine if she still had some life left. After a few moments, a hum of low static filled the room. The group watched expectantly as Mark adjusted the dials for a clear signal. Suddenly, in the midst of the confusion, a voice emerged. The radio was alive and broadcasting messages from an unknown station. The voice of the radio brought news from various regions, mentioning peculiar animal behaviors and other disturbing events. No specific reason was given, but caution and alertness were emphasized. The group exchanged worried looks, sensing that their journey might be more dangerous than they initially believed. As the broadcast continued, it became apparent that the group was not alone in facing these mysterious challenges. While it didn't confirm Mark's deepest concerns, the news was alarming enough. The reality of a common threat brought them closer together, forging an even stronger bond than before. Mark's instincts and experience were invaluable. The group, which had previously been skeptical of some of his precautions, now joined him, implicitly trusting his judgment. They recognized that his insight could be the key to circumventing the mystery and ensuring his safety. As the rain continued its rhythmic assault on the roof of the cabin, Mark spread out a map on a wooden table. Using a flashlight to illuminate himself, he began sketching out possible routes, highlighting areas of concern. The group huddled around him, contributing their ideas and points of view. In the midst of strategizing, Tara expressed a concern. What about the others at the base of the mountain and in the nearby village? Shouldn't they be warned? The room fell silent, the weight of responsibility palpable. It was clear that his journey was not just about personal survival, but potentially the well-being of many others. Mark recognized the gravity of the situation. He proposed a bold plan: to split the group. One team would head to the base of the mountain to warn those who were camped there, while the other would head to the city. It was a risky move, but with so much at stake, it was a gamble they had to make. The night deepened as the two teams prepared. At dawn tomorrow, they would go their separate ways, united by a common mission. The route to the city was shrouded in darkness. The forest was thick and seemed full of secrets. At every step, the rustling of leaves and distant noises reminded them of the many hidden dangers. The world around them seemed vast and unknown, making their mission seem even more urgent. As they emerged from the edge of the forest, the first signs of civilization welcomed them. The inhabitants of the town continued with their nocturnal routines, ignorant of the danger that was coming. Their laughter and conversation contrasted with the urgency in the hearts of Mark's team. Mark gathered the townspeople in the community hall and put on the radio show. Every word resounded in the silence, and the crowd, once unperturbed, was now restless. Mark insisted on the need to be prepared, sharing his experiences and urging them to recognize the danger that lay ahead. While some skepticism remained, city leaders recognized the gravity of the situation. Evacuation and resource protection plans were discussed. Families began packing up essentials, preparing to leave at a moment's notice, while others began securing their homes. Back in the woods, the other half of Mark's group set off to save those still on the mountain. Time was of the essence, and at every turn, they hoped to find them and guide them to safety before it was too late. Venturing higher, they stumbled upon a group of hikers they had met before, those who had scoffed at Mark's warnings. Now, their faces were filled with anxiety, and their brazenness had been replaced by fear. In front of Mark's group, the hikers swallowed their pride. "We should have listened," muttered one, gratitude evident in his tone. "Can you help us?" pleaded another. Acknowledging their mistakes made them long for the guidance and experience that Mark's group offered. With renewed determination, Mark's team led the way, using the knowledge gained to safely navigate the treacherous trails. The bond between the two groups was strengthened, united in a shared purpose and goal of security. Just at dawn, an earthquake shook the earth. The trees swayed, and the birds took flight in panic. It was a stark reminder that the threat was real and imminent. The groups picked up their pace, racing against the unpredictable force of nature. Upon arriving in town, Mark immediately coordinated with the leaders, sharing ideas and strategies. The combined efforts of Mark's wisdom and the city's resources bolstered their defenses, ensuring that, when the real challenge came, they would stand united and resilient. The city was bustling with activity, each playing their part as they prepared for what was to come. Realizing the urgency of the situation, the city, previously skeptical, quickly sprang into action. Families gathered essential supplies, neighbors helped each other, and the streets were bustling with a coordinated effort. The shadow of doubt that had once hung over Mark's words was gone. In the city council room, Mark sits with the local authorities. Their conversations focused on observations of animals acting strangely. The radio had hinted at it, and Mark had witnessed some of them. Connecting the dots was crucial to planning the next step. A spirit of unity pervaded the city. Vehicles were loaded, giving priority to the elderly and children. Makeshift camps are set up in the safest areas, and people reach out to make sure everyone is okay. Mark and a team of volunteers embarked on another risky mission. Their determination was unwavering, and they ventured back into the dark wilderness, hoping to bring everyone to safety. The atmosphere of the city was filled with anxiety. The tremors, once sporadic, now seemed more frequent and intense. Each lasted longer than the last, and each vibration caused waves of unrest among the inhabitants. As if nature itself sounded the alarm, the sky was filled with flocks of birds, whose erratic flight patterns painted a tapestry of urgency. The inhabitants of the city, who were already nervous, interpreted it as another ominous sign. The forests that once resounded with chirps and whispers now resounded with the anguished cries of animals. The symphony of nature stirred and sent shivers down the spine of those who listened to it. The cloak of night brought with it additional challenges. Mark's group, torches in hand, lit the way for the others. Each flame became a beacon of hope that pierced the overwhelming darkness. The group that had previously dismissed Mark's warnings was now visibly agitated. Their courage had faded, replaced by fear and uncertainty. They clung to Mark and his team, desperate for guidance and reassurance. Suddenly, an earthquake, stronger than any other, shook the foundations of the city and the mountain. Buildings were shaking, trees were falling, and panic was spreading. Now it was clear. Earth was revealing its brute force, underscoring the urgent need for everyone to escape. When the shaking subsided, everyone noticed. His battle was not only against time, but against the unstoppable force of nature itself. The earth roared defiantly. Powerful jolts transformed the serene landscape into a maelstrom of chaos. The trees danced violently as if possessed, and the ground, once firm, beneath his feet felt like a ship tossed about in the sea. There was panic in the air, but also determination, as Mark's group clung desperately to any glimmer of stability. In times of adversity, true character shines through. With each jolt and sway, the group members reached out to each other, pulling each other from the edge of the abyss, sharing words of encouragement. Their collective will became an unbreakable chain, ensuring that not a single soul would be isolated in the fury of the earthquake. Silence took over the place when the shaking stopped. The world seemed to hold its breath. All eyes were on all sides, taking stock of the injured and assessing the damage. Buildings lay in ruins, trees blocked roads, but the human spirit remained undaunted, already focused on recovery. In the midst of despair, heroes were born. Mark's group, which had already faced so many things, found renewed energy. They sought out other helpless souls, offering guidance, sharing supplies, and becoming a beacon of hope in the midst of devastation. From afar, in the midst of the enveloping darkness, a flash caught their attention. The dim lights of the city shone like a beacon, guiding ships on a stormy night. To Mark's group, he was a symbol of safety, warmth, and community that awaited his return. His return to the city was greeted with a mixture of relief, joy, and sincere gratitude. Families gathered, friends hugged, and even strangers shed tears of gratitude. Mark and his team were hailed as heroes, not only for their guidance, but for their unwavering spirit. It dawned in a city in ruins, but full of determination. People emerged from all corners to lend a hand to remove debris, provide medical aid, and rebuild. In the aftermath of the earthquake, the spirit of the city shone brighter than ever, highlighting the resilience of the community. Night fell, and survivors gathered around a communal bonfire. Their silhouettes danced through the flames as stories of hope, bravery, and resilience echoed through the night. Each story was a testament to the indomitable human spirit that thrived even in the face of nature's fury. Sitting a little away from the crowd, Mark stared at the fire. The events of the day replay in his mind, reinforcing his respect for the power of nature. More than that, reflect on the bonds created, the friendships forged, and the unity demonstrated in the midst of adversity. At the dawn of a new day, the story came to an end. A stronger community than before, with stories to tell and lessons learned. The most important, heeding nature's warnings and appreciating the bonds of community. Because in unity, humanity finds its greatest strength, even against the most powerful adversaries.